In a world where most people chase money and status, there are still those who hold on to something far more valuable: integrity. This is the story of Marcus Thompson, a 52-year-old mechanic who spent his entire life in the small town of Greenfield, working tirelessly in a rundown garage just to keep food on the table. What he didn't know was that one ordinary afternoon would change everything. A broken motorcycle, a mysterious woman, and a decision that would shake his entire community. What happened next left everyone speechless. Stay with us until the end, because this story has a twist that will make you question everything you thought you knew about kindness and reward. And we want to hear from you in the comments. Do you believe that doing the right thing still matters in today's world? Marcus Thompson woke up every morning at 5:30, just as the sun began to cast its first golden rays over Greenfield, a quiet town in rural Kentucky where everyone knew everyone and secrets were hard to keep. The town had seen better days. Once thriving with coal mining operations, Greenfield now struggled to survive, with boarded-up storefronts lining Main Street and young people leaving for bigger cities in search of opportunity. But Marcus stayed. This was home, for better or worse. His garage sat at the edge of town, a weathered building with peeling paint and a hand-painted sign that read, "Thompson's Auto Repair," in faded letters. Inside, the concrete floor was stained with decades of oil and grease. Tools hung on pegboards that Marcus had installed himself 30 years ago when he first opened the shop. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and in winter, a small space heater barely kept the cold at bay. But this garage was Marcus's kingdom, the one place where he felt he had control over something in his life. Marcus had learned his trade from his father, who had learned it from his father before him. 3 generations of Thompson men had turned wrenches in this town, fixing cars, trucks, motorcycles, anything with an engine. Marcus took pride in his work, even when customers complained about his prices, which were already lower than any shop within 50 miles. He had a reputation for honesty that was rare in his line of work. If something didn't need fixing, Marcus told you so, even if it cost him money. But honesty didn't pay the medical bills. Marcus's wife, Linda, had been diagnosed with chronic kidney disease 3 years ago, and the treatments were slowly draining every penny they had. Their insurance covered some of it, but not nearly enough. Marcus worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and still found himself lying awake at night, calculating which bills he could afford to pay late. Their 3 children, 2 daughters and a son, were all grown now, but they had their own struggles. His eldest daughter, Sarah, was a single mother working 2 jobs. His son, Michael, was trying to finish community college while working nights at a warehouse. And his youngest, Amy, had just gotten married to a man who treated her well, but barely earned enough to support them both. Marcus never complained. Complaining wasn't his way. He showed up, did the work, and trusted that somehow things would work out. On Sundays, he and Linda went to the small Baptist church on Maple Street, where they sat in the same pew they'd occupied for 30 years. The congregation had gotten smaller over time, just like the town itself, but the sense of community remained. People looked out for each other in Greenfield, at least most of them did. The autumn had been unusually warm that year, and business at the garage had been slow. People were holding on to their old vehicles longer, trying to squeeze every last mile out of them before committing to repairs. Marcus understood. He was doing the same thing with his own truck, a 1998 Ford that coughed black smoke every time he started it. He kept telling himself he'd fix it when he had time, but there was always something more urgent demanding his attention. On this particular Tuesday afternoon, Marcus was alone in the garage. His part-time helper, a kid named Danny who was saving up for trade school, had called in sick. The radio played classic rock at low volume, barely audible over the sound of Marcus's impact wrench as he worked on replacing the brake pads on a customer's sedan. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, muscle memory guiding each motion. These hands told the story of his life, calloused, scarred, permanently stained with grease that no amount of scrubbing could completely remove. They were the hands of a working man, honest hands that had never stolen, never cheated, never taken what wasn't earned. Outside, dark clouds had been gathering all afternoon, and by 3 o'clock the sky opened up. Rain came down in sheets, drumming on the metal roof of the garage so loudly that Marcus had to turn up the radio just to hear it. He didn't mind the rain. In fact, he found it comforting, a reminder that some things in nature followed their own rhythm, unbothered by human concerns about money or mortality. The rain didn't care about unpaid bills or medical diagnoses. It just fell, doing what rain does, and somehow that was reassuring. Marcus had just finished with the brake job and was washing his hands at the industrial sink in the corner when he heard it. The distinctive rumble of a motorcycle engine, sputtering and missing, clearly in distress. He looked up through the rain-streaked window to see a figure in a black leather jacket pushing a Harley-Davidson motorcycle under the overhang in front of his garage. The rider removed her helmet, and Marcus was surprised to see it was a woman, probably in her early 60s, with short silver hair that was somehow elegant despite being dampened by the rain. She knocked on the open bay door, and Marcus waved her in. "Come on in out of that weather," he called out, wiping his hands on a rag. "What seems to be the problem?" The woman pushed the motorcycle into the garage, water dripping from both her and the bike. Up close, Marcus noticed details that didn't quite fit together. Her leather jacket was expensive, probably custom-made, and her boots were high-end Italian craftsmanship. But she pushed that heavy motorcycle with the ease of someone who'd been riding for decades, someone who wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. There was something in her eyes, a sharpness, an intelligence that made Marcus feel like he was being evaluated, though he couldn't say why. "Started making a terrible noise about 10 miles back," she said, her voice calm and measured. "Lost power gradually, and then it just quit on me completely. I managed to coast into your town, saw your sign, and figured this was as good a place as any to stop." Marcus nodded, already moving toward the bike. "Let's take a look. You picked a rough day to break down, that's for sure." He crouched down beside the Harley, his trained eye immediately scanning for obvious problems. "This is a beautiful machine, 1996 Heritage Softail, if I'm not mistaken." "You know your motorcycles," the woman said, sounding impressed. "Been working on them since I was 12 years old," Marcus replied. "My daddy taught me. Always said motorcycles were like people. You treat them right, they'll treat you right. Neglect them, and they'll let you down when you need them most." He paused, listening to the engine as he tried to start it. It turned over, but wouldn't catch. "Sounds like a fuel delivery issue. Could be the fuel pump, could be a clogged filter, might even be the carburetor if someone's been messing with it." The woman watched him work, saying nothing, but Marcus could feel her eyes on him. He was used to customers watching, some suspicious that he might be inventing problems to charge them more, others genuinely curious about what was happening with their vehicles. This woman seemed different, though. She watched like someone who was studying him, not the motorcycle. For the next hour, Marcus methodically worked through the problem. He checked the fuel pump first, then the fuel lines, then pulled the carburetor to inspect it. All the while, the rain continued outside, creating a rhythmic backdrop to his work. The woman had taken a seat on an old wooden stool near his workbench, and they talked intermittently. She asked about the town, about his business, about his life. Marcus, who normally kept to himself, found himself opening up in a way that surprised him. He told her about Greenfield's decline, about the families who'd been here for generations now leaving for opportunities elsewhere. He told her about his father's garage, about learning to diagnose engine problems by sound alone. He even mentioned Linda's illness, though he immediately regretted it, worried he sounded like he was looking for sympathy. But the woman just listened, asking thoughtful questions, showing genuine interest. "Found your problem," Marcus finally announced, holding up a fuel filter caked with debris. "This filter should have been changed probably 2,000 miles ago. It's completely blocked. Amazing the bike ran at all. The carburetor's got some build-up too, but I can clean that out. How long will it take? The woman asked. Marcus glanced at the clock. It was already past 5. I can have it done in about an hour, maybe less. I've got the filter in stock and cleaning the carb is straightforward work. I don't want to keep you, she said. I'm sure you have somewhere to be. Marcus shrugged. My wife's at her sister's place tonight, and I don't have any other appointments. Besides, I don't like leaving a job half-finished. Let me get this done for you, and you can be on your way. He worked efficiently, replacing the filter and meticulously cleaning the carburetor. His movements were practiced, economical, the result of tens of thousands of hours spent doing similar work. When he finally reassembled everything and started the engine, it purred to life, smooth and powerful, the way a Harley should sound. The woman smiled, really smiled for the first time since arriving. That sounds perfect. What do I owe you? Marcus did a quick mental calculation. Parts and labor, considering the time and the quality of the work. In a city shop, this job would have cost $300, maybe more. But Marcus wasn't running a city shop, and this woman was stranded in the rain. $75, he said. That covers the filter and my time. The woman pulled out a wallet from her jacket, but instead of counting out bills, she pulled out what looked like a black credit card and 5 crisp $100 bills. Here, she said, holding out the cash. Take 500. You stayed late, you did excellent work, and honestly, you probably saved my life. If I'd broken down in a more remote area in this weather. Marcus held up his hand, refusing the money. Ma'am, I appreciate the thought, but $75 is a fair price for the work I did. I'm not going to charge you more just because you're willing to pay it. That's not how I do business. The woman studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. You're serious, she finally said. Yes, ma'am, I am. She slowly put 4 of the $100 bills back in her wallet and handed him one, along with a 20 and a 5. Will you at least accept this? $125. Consider the extra 50 a tip for your honesty. Marcus hesitated, then accepted the money. Refusing a reasonable tip seemed almost insulting. That's very generous. Thank you. The woman extended her hand. Thank you, Marcus. You've restored my faith in something I thought was extinct. They shook hands, and Marcus noticed her grip was firm, confident. Safe travels, he said, and get that bike serviced regularly. She'll take care of you if you take care of her. The woman put on her helmet, started the motorcycle, and rode out into the evening. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle. Marcus watched her taillights disappear down the highway, then returned to closing up the shop. He thought about the encounter briefly, filed it away as a pleasant interaction with an interesting customer, and forgot about it. He had no way of knowing that his life had just taken a turn that would change everything. What do you think about Marcus's decision to charge a fair price instead of taking advantage of the situation? Would you have done the same? Let us know in the comments below. 14 days passed. Marcus's life continued its familiar pattern. Early mornings, long days in the garage, evenings spent with Linda discussing treatments and medical appointments, nights lying awake worrying about money. Danny, his helper, had returned from his illness, and business had picked up slightly as the weather turned colder and people started having problems with their aging vehicles. Marcus had nearly forgotten about the woman with the Harley-Davidson. It was a Thursday morning, unseasonably cold for late October, when a black Mercedes sedan pulled up in front of Thompson's auto repair. Marcus noticed it immediately because cars like that didn't come to his garage. People who drove Mercedes went to the dealership in Lexington, an hour away, where they had computerized diagnostic equipment and mechanics in clean uniforms. The sedan's door opened, and a man in his mid-40s stepped out, wearing an expensive charcoal suit and carrying a leather briefcase. He looked around the garage with an expression that Marcus couldn't quite read. Not quite disapproval, but something close to curiosity mixed with discomfort. "Are you Marcus Thompson?" the man asked, his voice carrying the crisp articulation of someone who'd gone to an elite university. "That's me," Marcus said, setting down his coffee mug. "What can I do for you? If you're looking for someone to work on that Mercedes, I have to be honest with you. I don't have the specialized equipment for those newer models. You'd be better off going to—" "I'm not here about the car," the man interrupted, though not unkindly. "My name is Robert Blackwell. I'm an attorney with Whitmore and Associates in Louisville. I'm here on behalf of a client who wishes to speak with you about a matter of some importance. Do you have a few minutes?" Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. In his experience, lawyers showing up unannounced never brought good news. "Is this about a lawsuit?" he asked. "Because if someone's claiming I did faulty work, I stand behind everything I do, and—" "Nothing like that," Blackwell said, holding up a hand. "I promise you, Mr. Thompson, you're not in any kind of trouble. Quite the opposite, in fact. May we sit down somewhere and talk?" They went into Marcus's small office, really just a converted storage room with a desk, 2 chairs, and a filing cabinet. Blackwell sat down, placed his briefcase on his lap, and pulled out a folder. "2 weeks ago, you repaired a motorcycle for a woman who was stranded in the rain. Do you remember her?" Marcus nodded slowly. "I remember. Harley Heritage Softail, clogged fuel filter. Nice lady, didn't get her name though. Why? Is there a problem with the repair?" "No problem at all," Blackwell said. "The motorcycle runs perfectly, but that woman, Mr. Thompson, was Helena Westwood. Does that name mean anything to you?" Marcus shook his head. "Should it?" Blackwell looked genuinely surprised. "You really don't know who she is?" "I don't follow celebrities or anything like that," Marcus said. "I barely have time to watch the news." "Who is she?" Blackwell opened the folder and pulled out what appeared to be a printed article from Forbes magazine. The headline read, "Helena Westwood, the billionaire who changed technology." Below it was a photo of the woman who had come into his garage that rainy afternoon, though in this picture she was wearing an elegant business suit and standing in what looked like a corporate boardroom. Marcus stared at the photo, his mind struggling to reconcile the sophisticated businesswoman in the image with the rain-soaked motorcycle rider who'd sat on his workbench stool. "This is the same," Blackwell confirmed. "Helena Westwood built Westwood Technologies from nothing, started in her garage 40 years ago, creating microprocessors that revolutionized personal computing. She's worth approximately $4.2 billion, though she guards her privacy fiercely. Most people wouldn't recognize her because she rarely appears in public and hasn't given an interview in over a decade." Marcus set down the magazine, feeling overwhelmed. "I don't understand. What does this have to do with me?" "Ms. Westwood has certain habits," Blackwell said carefully. "She's deeply concerned about the state of society, about the loss of values like honesty and integrity. So periodically, she travels around the country, often on that motorcycle, presenting herself as an ordinary person in situations where others might take advantage of her. She's testing people, in a sense, seeing if anyone still chooses to do the right thing when they think no one important is watching." The knot in Marcus's stomach tightened. "She was testing me." "Yes," Blackwell said, "and Mr. Thompson, you passed with flying colors. She told me that when you refused to overcharge her, when you insisted on charging only a fair price for honest work, she was genuinely moved. She said it was the first time in months of similar tests that anyone had treated her with such straightforward decency. Most mechanics in other towns, when they realized she had money and was desperate, charged her 3 or 4 times what the job was worth. One even tried to convince her she needed a complete engine rebuild when all she had was a dirty spark plug." Marcus didn't know what to say. The idea that someone with billions of dollars would spend their time testing the honesty of small-town mechanics seemed absurd. Yet here was this lawyer telling him it was true. "Ms. Westwood wants to do something for you," Blackwell continued. "She's set up a meeting if you're willing. Next Monday, 11 a.m. at her estate just outside Louisville. She has a proposal she'd like to discuss with you in person. What kind of proposal? Marcus asked, his voice wary. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, Blackwell said. Ms. Westwood prefers to have that conversation directly, but I can tell you this. She believes you're exactly the kind of person this country needs more of, and she wants to help you. No strings attached, no expectations beyond you being yourself. Marcus sat back in his chair, his mind racing. This felt like a dream, or maybe a prank, some kind of setup that would end badly. People like him didn't get meetings with billionaires. Things like this didn't happen in real life. I need to think about this, Marcus said finally. And I need to talk to my wife. Of course, Blackwell said, standing up. He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the desk. Take your time. If you decide you'd like to meet with Ms. Westwood, call that number by Friday evening. The meeting would be completely private, just you and her. And Mr. Thompson, whatever you decide, you should know that your honesty that rainy afternoon reminded someone very powerful that good people still exist. That's worth something, regardless of what happens next. After Blackwell left, Marcus sat alone in his office for a long time, staring at the business card. His first instinct was to dismiss the whole thing, to get back to work and forget this bizarre interruption. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, something that might offer a way out of the financial nightmare that had been slowly crushing him and Linda for years. That night, he would have to tell Linda everything and figure out together what to do. The decision ahead of them was more complicated than any engine problem he'd ever solved, and the stakes were higher than he'd ever imagined. We want to take a moment to thank you for staying with us this far in the story. Your time and attention mean everything to us. And trust us when we say, the best part of this incredible journey is still ahead. You won't want to miss what happens when Marcus makes his decision. Marcus's conversation with Linda that evening was one of the most difficult they'd had in their 31 years of marriage. They sat at their kitchen table, the same wooden table where they'd shared countless meals, helped their children with homework, and weathered every crisis their life together had thrown at them. The attorney's business card lay between them like a challenge. It sounds too good to be true, Linda said, her voice weak from her latest round of dialysis. She laughed. So tired, and Marcus felt the familiar ache of helplessness that came from watching someone you love suffer. People don't just hand out money to strangers, Marcus. There has to be a catch. That's what I thought, Marcus admitted, but I looked her up online at the library. Helena Westwood is real, Linda. She's exactly who that lawyer said she is. And there are articles about her philanthropy, about how she's given away hundreds of millions to various causes. She built schools in poor communities, funded medical research, set up scholarship programs. She's known for hating publicity and doing things quietly. Linda picked up the business card, turning it over in her hands. What do you think she wants from you? I don't know, Marcus said honestly. Maybe nothing. Maybe she just wants to help, like the lawyer said. Or maybe she has some business proposition. Either way, I think we should hear her out. What do we have to lose? Our pride, Linda said softly. Our dignity. If this turns into some kind of charity case, if she offers us money like we're beggars. We are not beggars, Marcus said firmly, reaching across the table to take his wife's hand. We are people who work hard and have been dealt some tough circumstances. There's no shame in accepting help if it's offered genuinely. And Linda, we need help. Your treatments are bankrupting us. Sarah's struggling with the kids. Michael might have to drop out of school because he can't afford tuition. We can't keep pretending we're okay when we're drowning. Tears welled up in Linda's eyes. I hate this. I hate being sick. I hate what it's doing to our family, to you. Marcus moved his chair closer and put his arm around her. None of this is your fault. We'll get through it like we always do. Maybe, just maybe, this is the break we've been praying for. That Friday evening, Marcus called the number on the business card and agreed to the meeting. The following Monday, he made the 2-hour drive to Louisville. his old truck rattling and smoking the whole way. Robert Blackwell had sent detailed directions to the Westwood estate, which turned out to be a sprawling property hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. A security guard checked Marcus's identification, made a phone call, and then opened the gates. The main house was impressive, but not ostentatious. A beautiful colonial-style mansion surrounded by gardens that were still colorful despite the late autumn season. Marcus parked his truck in the circular driveway, feeling acutely aware of how out of place his vehicle looked next to the luxury cars in the garage. He could see through an open door. He was wearing his only suit, purchased 15 years ago for his daughter's wedding, and he'd polished his shoes until they gleamed. It still wasn't enough to make him feel like he belonged here. A woman in her 30s, professionally dressed, greeted him at the door. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Sarah Chen, Ms. Westwood's personal assistant. She's expecting you. Please, follow me." They walked through the house, which was elegant but surprisingly comfortable, filled with books, art that looked hand-picked rather than decorator-chosen, and photographs that appeared to be family pictures. Sarah led him to a sunroom overlooking the gardens, where Helena Westwood sat in a comfortable chair, reading a book. She looked up when they entered and smiled. "Marcus," she said, standing up and extending her hand, "thank you for coming. I know this must all seem very strange." "That's one word for it," Marcus said, shaking her hand. Up close, without the rain and the leather jacket, he could see the intelligence in her eyes, even more clearly, along with something else. Weariness, perhaps, or loneliness. This was a woman who had achieved everything society said mattered, yet something in her expression suggested it hadn't been enough. They sat down, and Sarah brought them coffee before quietly leaving the room. Helena didn't waste time with small talk. "I imagine Robert explained my little tests," she said. "I know it seems eccentric, maybe even manipulative, but I've learned that people show you who they really are when they think there's nothing to gain or lose by it. In my position, I'm constantly surrounded by people who want something from me, who tell me what they think I want to hear. It becomes impossible to know who's genuine." "I can't even imagine that," Marcus said honestly. "In my world, people are pretty straightforward. They need their car fixed. I fix it. They pay me. Simple as that." "But you could have charged me $500 for that repair," Helena pointed out. "I offered it to you. You could have taken advantage of someone who was stranded and desperate. Why didn't you?" Marcus thought about it. Because it wouldn't have been right. The job was worth $75. That's what it cost me in parts and time, plus a fair markup. Taking more than that would have been stealing, plain and simple. My daddy taught me that you can look at yourself in the mirror every morning if you know you treated people fairly. I've tried to live by that." Helena smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Your father taught you well. Mine taught me to be ruthless in business, to see every interaction as a transaction where someone wins and someone loses. It made me very successful and very wealthy. It also made me very lonely. I've spent the last 10 years trying to find people who still have what you have, integrity that isn't for sale." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the gardens. "I want to tell you something, Marcus. Something I haven't talked about publicly. When I was 23 years old, I was exactly where you are now. Broke, desperate, watching my mother die because we couldn't afford her medical treatments. I was working 3 jobs, trying to finish college, and it wasn't enough. I stole money from my employer to pay for her medications." Marcus was stunned. "You stole?" "I did," Helena said, turning back to face him. "I told myself it was justified, that a big company wouldn't miss a few $1,000s, that my mother's life was worth more than their profits. I was caught, of course, should have gone to jail. But the company owner, a man named Arthur Whitmore, made me a deal. He'd give me the money for my mother's treatment, and in return, I'd work for him to pay it back. No interest, no criminal charges. He saw something in me, I suppose. Potential, maybe, or desperation he recognized. He became my mentor, taught me everything about business. When he died, he left me enough money to start my own company. Everything I have now started with an act of mercy from a man who had every right to destroy me." She returned to her chair. "My mother lived another 8 years, long enough to see me succeed, to know that her daughter hadn't become a thief after all, that one mistake didn't define who I was. Arthur saved both our lives, and I made myself a promise. If I ever had the means, I would pay forward what he did for me. I would find people who deserved help and give them the chance he gave me." "Is that what this is?" Marcus asked. "You're paying it forward?" "Yes," Helena said simply. "Marcus, I want to help you and your family. I've had investigators look into your situation, and I hope you won't be offended by that. I needed to know if you were genuinely in need, or if you were someone running a con, pretending to be poor to take advantage of a wealthy woman's sympathy. What I found was a man who's been working himself to death for decades, who's never asked for handouts, who's raised good children, who's loved his wife through sickness, and who's somehow maintained his principles despite every pressure to compromise them." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "What are you offering?" Helena pulled out a folder from the table beside her chair. "I'm offering several things. First, I'm going to pay for your wife's medical treatments, all of them, including a kidney transplant, if she's a candidate. I have connections with the best nephrologists in the country. She'll get the care she needs." Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears threatening to spill over. "Second," Helena continued, "I'm setting up education funds for your 3 children. Full scholarships, essentially, for whatever education or training they want to pursue. Your son can finish his degree. Your daughters can go back to school if they choose. Their children's education will be covered too." "I don't understand," Marcus managed to say. "Why would you do all this?" "Because people like you are rare," Helena said. "Because I'm tired of seeing good people crushed by a system that rewards greed and punishes integrity. Because I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. And what good is it if I don't use it to help people who actually deserve it?" "There must be something you want in return," Marcus said, his natural caution reasserting itself. "Nobody gives this much without expecting something." Helena smiled. "Perceptive. There is something I want, but not what you're probably thinking. I don't want you to work for me. I don't want you to sign anything or give up control of your life. What I want is simple. I want you to continue being exactly who you are. I want you to keep running your garage with the same honesty and integrity you've always had. And I want you to share your story, carefully and on your own terms, to show other people that doing the right thing still matters." She leaned forward. "Marcus, this country is losing something essential. People are becoming cynical, believing that everyone is corrupt, that you have to cheat to get ahead. I want to fund a project, a series of workshops and programs in small towns across America, teaching young people about skilled trades, about the dignity of honest work, about building character. And I want you to be part of it, not as an employee, but as an example. Show them what it looks like to be a man of integrity. That's all I'm asking." Marcus sat in silence for a long time, processing everything. It was overwhelming, too much to take in all at once. Part of him wanted to accept immediately, to grab this lifeline being offered to his drowning family. But another part, the part his father had instilled in him, was wary of anything that seemed too good to be true. "I need to talk to Linda," he finally said. "I need to think about what you're asking. This is more than just accepting help. You're asking me to become some kind of public figure, even if it's just in small towns. That's not who I am." "I understand," Helena said. "Take all the time you need. But Marcus, think about this. Your wife is getting sicker. Your children are struggling. You can barely keep the lights on in your garage. How much longer can you hold out before everything collapses? Pride is important, but so is survival, and there's no shame in accepting help from someone who genuinely wants to give it." She stood up, indicating the meeting was over. "Whatever you decide, I want you to have this." She handed him an envelope. "It's a check for $50,000. No strings attached, no conditions. Use it for Linda's treatments. Use it to fix up your garage. Use it however you need. Consider it payment for the lesson you taught me that rainy afternoon, that decent people still exist." Marcus took the envelope with shaking hands. $50,000. It was more money than he'd made in any single year of his life. It would cover Linda's treatments for months, maybe pay off some of their crushing debt. It would be a genuine lifeline. "I don't know what to say," Marcus admitted. "Say you'll think about my offer," Helena replied. "And Marcus, thank you for being you. You've reminded me why I bother with all this." As Marcus drove home that afternoon, the check in his jacket pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. He'd done nothing to earn this money except fix a motorcycle for a fair price and refuse to overcharge someone. It seemed impossible that such a simple act of basic decency could be worth so much. But then again, maybe that was the point. Maybe basic decency had become so rare that it was now priceless. When he got home and showed Linda the check, she broke down crying. They held each other at the kitchen table, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were finally going to get better. But accepting this money meant accepting everything else that came with it, and he wasn't sure he was ready for that. They had a decision to make, one that would change their lives forever, one way or another. The next 6 months unfolded like a dream Marcus kept expecting to wake from, but never did. He and Linda ultimately decided to accept Helena Westwood's help, not just the $50,000 check, but all of it. The decision wasn't easy. They spent weeks agonizing over it, consulting with their children, talking to their pastor, lying awake at night wondering if they were making a mistake. But in the end, Linda's worsening condition made the choice for them. Pride couldn't keep her alive. Integrity didn't treat kidney disease. They needed help, and someone was offering it genuinely. They chose to accept. The transformation began immediately. Helena arranged for Linda to see Dr. Margaret Chen, one of the country's leading nephrologists, at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. The doctor reviewed Linda's case and determined she was a candidate for a kidney transplant. Within 8 weeks, through a paired exchange program that Helena's foundation helped facilitate, Linda received her new kidney. The surgery was successful, and for the first time in 3 years, Linda started to feel healthy again. The change was miraculous. Color returned to her face. She had energy to do things she'd abandoned years ago. She started cooking again, gardening, attending church regularly. It was like getting his wife back from a slow death sentence. Marcus kept his garage open, but Helena's foundation had renovated it completely. New equipment, updated tools, fresh paint, a proper heating and cooling system, even a small customer waiting area with comfortable chairs and a coffee machine. She insisted it wasn't charity, but investment. If Marcus was going to be teaching young people about skilled trades, he needed a proper facility. The renovated garage became something of a showcase, proof that you could run an honest, successful business in a small town. True to her word, Helena involved Marcus in her initiative, which she called the Integrity Project. It started small, with Marcus giving talks at local high schools and community centers about the value of skilled trades, about the importance of doing honest work, about how character matters more than profit. He was terrified at first, standing in front of rooms full of teenagers who looked bored and skeptical. But Marcus didn't try to be something he wasn't. He just told his story, showed his scarred hands, talked about the satisfaction of fixing something that was broken, and gradually the students started listening. The Integrity Project grew beyond anyone's expectation. Helena's foundation partnered with trade schools across Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia, creating scholarship programs for students who wanted to learn practical skills like welding, electrical work, plumbing, and automotive repair. Marcus became the face of the program, traveling to different towns, speaking at events, demonstrating repairs, and always emphasizing the same message. Honest work done well is something to be proud of. He wasn't a motivational speaker. He was just a mechanic who believed in doing things right, and somehow that authenticity resonated with people. But success brought unexpected complications. Not everyone in Greenfield was happy about Marcus's sudden change in fortune. Rumors began circulating almost immediately. Some people whispered that Marcus must have done something illegal to attract the attention of a billionaire. Others suggested Linda's kidney transplant had been purchased illegally, jumping ahead of people on legitimate waiting lists. A few former customers claimed Marcus had overcharged them in the past, conveniently forgetting the years he'd given them discounts or let them pay late. Small-town jealousy revealed itself in subtle and not-so-subtle ways. The worst came from Dale Hutchins, who ran the other garage in town, a larger operation on the opposite side of Greenfield. Dale had always resented Marcus, viewing him as competition, even though there was plenty of work for both of them. When word spread about Helena's involvement, Dale started a campaign of whispers and insinuations. He told customers that Marcus was now too good for regular folks, that he'd sold out, that the renovated garage was funded by money that should have gone to more deserving causes. Some people believed him. Marcus tried to ignore it, but it hurt. He'd lived his entire life in this town, had gone to school with these people, had fixed their cars for decades, often at prices he couldn't afford to charge. Now, because someone had recognized his honesty and chosen to help him, he was being painted as a sellout or a fraud. Linda took it even harder. She heard the whispers at church, saw former friends cross the street to avoid talking to her. The stress of it affected her recovery, and Marcus found himself angry in ways he'd never been before. One Saturday afternoon, things came to a head. Marcus was at the garage, teaching a weekend workshop for high school students who were interested in automotive repair. 15 kids had shown up, more than he'd expected, and they were engaged and asking good questions. Then Dale Hutchins walked in, clearly drunk, his face red with anger. "There he is!" Dale shouted, pointing at Marcus. "The town hero, the honest mechanic who got rich by kissing up to some billionaire. Tell these kids the truth, Marcus. Tell them how you conned that woman into thinking you were some kind of saint." The students fell silent, looking uncomfortable. Marcus felt his face flush, but he kept his voice calm. "Dale, you're drunk. Go home and sleep it off. We can talk about this another time." "We'll talk about it now," Dale insisted, stumbling slightly. "You think you're better than the rest of us. You think your garage is special because some rich lady threw money at you. I've been working in this town for 30 years, and nobody gave me millions of dollars." "Nobody gave me millions of dollars either," Marcus said quietly, "and I'm not better than anyone. I just tried to do my job honestly, same as I always have. Now please leave. You're scaring these kids." "Scaring them?" Dale laughed bitterly. "They should be scared. They should know that in the real world, being honest gets you nowhere. You got lucky, Marcus. You fixed a rich lady's bike, and she decided to play fairy godmother. That's not integrity. That's just dumb luck." Marcus walked toward Dale, and for a moment, the other man looked uncertain. But Marcus didn't raise his hand or his voice. Instead, he said, "You're right about one thing, Dale. I did get lucky. I was lucky that on a rainy Tuesday someone came into my garage who valued honesty more than most people do. But I've been doing honest work for 40 years, long before that day, and I'd still be doing it even if Helena Westwood had never walked through my door. The question isn't why I got lucky. The question is why you're so angry that someone else's life got a little easier." Dale stared at him, his anger deflating into something that looked like pain. "Because I'm drowning too, Marcus," he said, his voice breaking. "My daughter needs surgery. My wife left me. My business is failing, and nobody's coming to save me. So angry. I'm angry that the universe is so random, that good things happen to some people and not others, and there's no rhyme or reason to any of it." Marcus felt his anger evaporate, replaced by a deep sadness. I'm sorry, Dale. I really am. And if you need help, if you want to talk about your daughter's surgery, maybe there's something we can do. Helena's foundation helps a lot of people. But coming in here drunk and bitter isn't going to solve anything. Let me help you, but you have to let me. Dale looked at Marcus for a long moment, then turned and walked out without another word. The students remained silent until one of them, a girl named Emma who wanted to be a mechanic, spoke up. Miss Thompson, is it true? Did all this really happen just because you charged someone a fair price? Marcus nodded. It's true. But Emma, here's what you need to understand. I didn't do it expecting anything in return. I did it because it was the right thing to do. You can't live your life hoping for rewards every time you're honest or decent. You do those things because they're who you are, because you can't look at yourself in the mirror otherwise. The fact that something good came from it was a miracle, but you can't count on miracles. You just have to count on yourself to do right. The workshop continued, and Marcus never saw Dale again at his garage, though he heard later that Helena's foundation had indeed helped with his daughter's surgery after Marcus made some calls. The incident made Marcus realize something important. His story wasn't just about him anymore. It had become something larger, a symbol that people projected their own hopes and frustrations onto. Some saw inspiration, others saw unfairness, a few saw opportunity. He had to be careful about how he handled this new responsibility. As months turned into a year, the Integrity Project expanded across 5 states. Marcus trained other mechanics and craftspeople to become instructors, spreading the message that honest work still mattered. His children thrived with their new opportunity. Michael finished his degree in engineering and got a job at a company that developed sustainable energy solutions. Sarah was able to reduce her work hours and spend more time with her kids, and she'd even started taking online classes toward a nursing degree. Amy and her husband bought a small house, their first real home. Linda was healthy, active, and happier than Marcus had seen her in years. But Marcus himself struggled with his new identity. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was Marcus Thompson, the face of the Integrity Project, the man whose story was being shared in articles and videos, the example Helena Westwood held up to the world. People recognized him now when he traveled. They asked for photos, wanted to hear his story, treated him like he was someone special. It was exhausting and disorienting. He'd never wanted to be famous, even in this small way. He just wanted to fix engines and go home to his wife. One evening, about 14 months after that fateful rainy afternoon, Helena invited Marcus and Linda to her estate for dinner. It was just the 3 of them, sitting in her sunroom as the sun set over the garden. They talked about the Integrity Project's successes, about the hundreds of young people who were now learning trades, about the ripple effects that were spreading through community. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said eventually. "I'm grateful for everything you've done. You saved Linda's life. You gave my children opportunities they never would have had. You've helped thousands of people through this project. But I'm struggling with all of it. I'm not comfortable being held up as some kind of role model. I'm just a guy who fixed a motorcycle. I don't think I'm special." Helena smiled, that same slightly sad smile Marcus had seen before. "That's exactly what makes you special, Marcus. You don't think you're special. You don't believe you deserve anything extra for simply being decent. That humility, that genuine lack of ego, is incredibly rare. Most people who do one good deed want the world to know about it. You did thousands of good deeds over 4 decades, and you never expected recognition for any of them." "I still don't," Marcus said. "I just want to be left alone to do my work." "I know," Helena said. "And if you want to step back from the public aspects of the Integrity Project, we can arrange that. Train other people to do the speaking and the demonstrations. You can go back to being just Marcus Thompson, mechanic. I won't hold you to anything you're not comfortable with." Marcus looked at Linda, who had been quiet throughout the conversation. "What do you think?" he asked her. Linda reached over and took his hand. "I think you've already changed more lives than you realize, Mark. Those kids who come to your workshops, they look at you and see proof that being honest isn't stupid, that integrity isn't just a word people use in church, but forget about the rest of the week. Maybe you don't need to be the face of this project forever. But don't discount what you've already accomplished. You've shown people something they needed to see." "Your wife is wise," Helena said. "But I want to be clear about something, Mark. I didn't help you because I wanted you to feel obligated to me. I helped you because it was the right thing to do, the same way you fixed my motorcycle for a fair price, because it was the right thing to do. If the Integrity Project ended tomorrow, I'd still consider helping you and Linda to be one of the best decisions I've ever made. You reminded me why I started doing this work in the first place." Dakiridi. They talked late into the evening, and by the time Marcus and Linda drove home, Marcus felt something settle in his chest. He'd spent months feeling like he owed Helena something impossible to repay, like he was trapped in an obligation he hadn't fully understood when he accepted her help. But maybe that wasn't the right way to look at it. Maybe what Helena had given him wasn't a debt, but a gift, freely offered with no expectation of anything in return except that he continue being him. That, at least, was something he knew how to do. 2 years after the rainy afternoon that changed everything, Marcus made a decision. He would continue working with the Integrity Project, but on his own terms. He trained 6 other craftspeople to take over most of the public speaking and demonstrations. He focused on what he loved, working in his garage, teaching small groups of students who genuinely wanted to learn, and fixing things that were broken. His name remained associated with the project, but he stepped back from the spotlight, becoming more of a consultant than a spokesman. Dale Hutchins eventually apologized, and the 2 men developed a cautious friendship. Dale's garage and Marcus's garage even started referring customers to each other when one was too busy to handle all the work. The town of Greenfield, after its initial shock and jealousy, gradually came to accept that something extraordinary had happened to one of their own, and most people were genuinely happy about it. The few who remained bitter eventually found other things to complain about. Marcus never forgot the lesson of that rainy afternoon. It wasn't that doing the right thing always leads to rewards. Most of the time, it doesn't. You do the right thing because it's right, and you accept that life is often unfair, that good people suffer, that honesty doesn't guarantee success. Occasionally, very occasionally, the universe aligns in unexpected ways. Someone sees your character when you think no one is watching. Someone values integrity in a world that often doesn't. Sometimes, just sometimes, choosing to be decent when you could have been greedy creates ripples that spread far beyond anything you could have imagined. Helena Westwood died 3 years later, at the age of 67, from a sudden heart attack. She was riding her motorcycle on a country road in Montana when it happened, going back to the thing that had always brought her peace. Marcus and Linda attended the small private funeral, along with dozens of other people whose lives Helena had quietly changed over the years. The will revealed that Helena had left the Integrity Project a substantial endowment to continue its work for decades to come, and that Marcus had been named to the board of directors. Standing at Helena's grave, Marcus thought about the strange path his life had taken. A broken motorcycle, a rainy afternoon, a decision to charge a fair price instead of taking advantage of someone's desperation. Such a small thing, really, but it had led to all of this. He'd never believed in fate or destiny before, but now he wondered. Maybe there was a pattern to things he couldn't see, a reason why that particular woman broke down in front of his particular garage on that particular day. Or maybe it was just dumb luck, as Dale had said. Maybe the universe really was random and chaotic, and Marcus had simply been in the right place at the right time. Either way, he'd learned something crucial. Character isn't about grand gestures or dramatic moments. It's about the small choices you make when no one important is watching, when there's nothing to gain except the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and know you did right. Those choices define who you are far more than wealth or success or recognition ever could. Marcus Thompson, the mechanic from Greenfield, Kentucky, continued to fix engines, teach students, and live by the principles his father had taught him. He never got used to having money in the bank or not worrying about medical bills. Sometimes he still woke up thinking it had all been a dream. But Linda was healthy beside him, his children were thriving, and young people across 5 states were learning that honest work still mattered in this world. That was real. That was enough. And on rainy afternoons, when he heard a motorcycle engine outside his garage, he still smiled and remembered the day everything changed, not because he did anything extraordinary, but because he refused to do anything less than right. This story reminds us of something essential in these turbulent times we live in. Integrity still matters. In a world that often seems to reward shortcuts, deception, and greed, Marcus Thompson proved that there are still people who choose character over convenience, honesty over profit. His story isn't a fairy tale. It's a reflection of what happens when someone holds on to their principles even when it costs them, even when no one is watching, even when they're drowning in problems and an easy compromise is right there in front of them. We've all faced moments like Marcus did that rainy afternoon, moments where we could take advantage of someone, charge more than something is worth, cut a corner that no one would notice, or compromise our values for immediate gain. Most of the time, choosing integrity doesn't lead to billionaires showing up with life-changing offers. Most of the time, we make the right choice, and nothing dramatic happens at all. But we make those choices anyway, because they define who we are when everything else is stripped away. What would you have done in Marcus's position, when someone offers you more money than a job is worth, when you're desperate and struggling, and no one would blame you for taking it? Do you hold firm to your principles? And more importantly, are there areas of your life right now where you're facing that choice, where you know what's right but the temptation to compromise is strong? These are the questions this story asks us to consider. We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been in a situation where your honesty was tested? Have you witnessed acts of integrity that restored your faith in humanity? Do you believe people like Marcus Thompson still exist, or is this just a rare exception? Your perspective matters to us and to everyone in this community. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own choices and values, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. We share stories like this regularly, stories about real people facing real challenges, stories that remind us of the best parts of human nature. Click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next video. And before you go, we have another incredible story waiting for you in our recommended video. It's about a teacher who made an impossible sacrifice for her students, and what happened afterward will absolutely amaze you. Click on that video now and continue this journey with us. Thank you for being here, for caring about these stories, and for being part of a community that believes character still counts in this world.